And the whole show is going to be focused around public places, I guess we'll say, and how this is changing, evolving. So it's not just going to be like a COVID-19 show completely, but it's going to touch on some of those subjects because I see all these places changing. Now in it, I have public transportation, so I'm going to talk to the people at the bus station, how they're working, the public library, how they're adjusting, what they're going to do, and the public metro parks too. So this kind of ties into the whole theme, and then the theaters now. Now it's interesting. I did some research and looking at this through this post-COVID-19 terms, the Akron Civic has an interesting history with when it was built and the time period and how it looks, I think.
Right.
We'll get into that in a second.
Okay. All right.
So first off, let's talk a little bit about the history. Being, in 1919, what I found interesting that this place was actually originally concepted and started construction in the ashes of the 1918 flu pandemic, and actually it was still kind of active up until 1920, I read. So it seems like, I don't know, it's hard to tell what happened then, but it seemed like the person had a lot of ambitions. They wanted to have a big 30-store restaurant place, and then it kind of went bankrupt and got sold. Right. But I find it interesting that the Akron Civic technically was kind of built in the ashes, started in the ashes.
Well, that's really, I was not aware of that. It was supposed to be a hippodrome. That was what the name of the building was going to be. And they actually, all they built in 1918, 1919 was the entry arcade. The actual building itself, where the theater is, didn't get built till 1927. So the Hippodrome project never got built, just the entryway off of Main Street. But that's a really good point. I mean, it was financial reasons that stopped it, but I had no idea. It very well may have been connected to the 1918 Spanish flu. That may have been the reason why the financial hardships existed. The timing would be right, that's for sure.
I mean, it's interesting to look at, and now that we look at it, we live through it and see it, we look at all things a little bit differently now, how everything has evolved. Yeah. So it totally makes sense because the 20s, they say the roaring 20s, but the roaring 20s didn't really start roaring until like 26. Yeah. And then it went up there. It took a long time to recover, which kind of goes into the next part of this. Was the Akron Civic was designed by John Eberson, I believe. Eberson, I'm not trying to pronounce it.
Eberson. Yeah, John Eberson. Yep.
And up until 1921, he was developing pretty run-of-the-norm theaters. And then in 1921, he came up with this, the original one was built, which was probably concepted during the flu pandemic about atmospheric design.
Yeah.
So it looked like you were outside. And I'm looking at it through that view. Plus you had tuberculosis, which the cure for TB at the time, people out in the sun, they were thinking the same thing with the flu. And theaters had to be going through some tough times. And I wonder, because his career took off after that.
Yeah, right.
That time period, it shouldn't have. And I wondered if it was, if he designed it thinking about this, thinking about
it makes sense.
Inside.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, it was also, I think it was probably a combination of things, but that makes total sense that if the idea at the time, if the conventional wisdom was that being outside was safer than being inside, then creating an environment that made people feel like they were outside makes a lot of sense. I think it also tied into the fact that it was less expensive to build a ceiling that had stars and clouds than it was to build a ceiling that had all that ornate plasterwork. So it was probably a combination of both things, where they came up with, wait a minute, we can spend less money and we can make people feel better. That's a win-win.
So just to retouch on the history there, so the very entryway to the Civic now was the original building that was built, and then it was put on hold until it was picked up by Lowell's Theater, and then it was developed from there and opened in 1929, I believe.
1929, and I think the building itself, what people know of as the Civic, started being built in 1927. So it was a gap of a good 6, 7, 8 years between when the entryway got built and then the rest of the theater got built.
Now, on an interesting topic there, kind of jump around, can we talk a little bit about that line that shows the restoration project and how amazing that looks there and how that came about?
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, we did a restoration of the theater in 2002. And we ran out of money. like we couldn't finish the project. So we raised, I think, about $20 million, and that got most of the theater done. It got the new bathrooms. It got the stage redone. But we needed, 5, 6, 7 more to finish the rest of the project. So that didn't happen, and it's just happening now. I mean, we literally, it took us from 2002 to now, so 18 years to be able to get the money together, and that was all, fortunately, all that work and all that money was raised prior to the pandemic. So we are moving forward with that work.
Now, on that, another topic I'd like to talk about, if it's still going on now, I attended the event where we talked about doing a mural outside the Civic in the future. Can you talk a little bit about that project? Is that something that's still evolving and whatnot?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's all, I mean, there may be some slight adjustments in terms of the timeline, but as far as the basic overall, we just saw steel start to go up on the new construction. That'll be the new box office, new administrative office, and a new entryway to the front part of the theater. We are moving forward with the interior restoration so that line will disappear inside. The new Whitelaw project, where the 200-seat club will be, is moving along, and we're contracted with a mural artist for one of the murals. We're still looking for another. So really, everything should be done by September, October, including the new construction, the murals, everything. Now, again, I mean, maybe that's going to change a little bit. We are seeing a little bit of a slowdown because of folks not coming to work, construction workers. But we'll see if that, I don't think it's going to be another year. I think it might push things back a couple of months at the most. So that's good. And then we'll be finishing the whole project up in summer of 2021 with a exterior video wall that was originally going to go up in summer of 2020. But for a variety of reasons, we're going to wait until 2021. But, I would say 85% of what the project is will be complete by the end of 2020, and we'll have it all the way buttoned up by summer of 2021.
I really look forward to that. That's going to be good. Now, does that also tie into the project that they're working with revitalizing the buildings next to you? Is that all going to tie in together with, do those work together at all? I mean, as far as how's that evolving?
Yeah, no, right. I mean, these projects were done simultaneously on purpose because we felt that that project, the restaurants, the retail, the residential would help drive the downtown revitalization that the Civic is part of. And at the same time, they felt that the Civic Theater expanding and becoming more active would help their operation. So they're very symbiotic, and yes, they are working together. They're two separate projects, but they're connected, definitely connected. And that project's going great. I mean, they have, I think, something like 25% occupancy, which is ahead of their projections in the residential part. People are living there, and the restaurants and retail are behind. But I mean, between the COVID-19 situation and Main Street being torn up, the spaces are all done. They just haven't announced any tenants yet.
So it's interesting. I found that the original Hippodrome is kind of going to be there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Just kind of spread out in a little bit geographically, a little differently. But yeah, you're exactly right. But yeah, that's true. That's exactly what the Hippodrome was planning to be.
It's how, and it took
crazy.
100 years basically. It all comes around full circle.
Right.
And it's interesting. So I strongly believe that this is built out of those ashes of a changing time, and it will continue to evolve past this. And much like it flourished then, it'll flourish again. I especially with all the great renovations that are coming up.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And I'll tell you, the other thing is, it's absolutely clear, is that we all know that when we come out of this, we're going to be a different society than we were going in. Things are going to change. But what I'm seeing already is that there are 3 or 4 things we're doing right now that absolutely will be in effect once we reopen, that will change the way the Civic Theater impacts the community. Some of the virtual stuff that we're doing online, where we're offering shows online, that stuff's not going to end once you can come see a show live in the theater. It'll be another avenue by which the Civic Theater is putting out content, and so that's for sure. And I think, there's some other things that'll be going on in terms of the way we communicate, the way that how we treat health-related issues around the building. These are all things that are not going to just stop because all of a sudden we're all better, So I think there's really some positive things that are going to come out of all this. It's a very, very difficult situation for a lot of people. There's no question. There are a lot of people that are really, really suffering from this. And, hopefully we're all going to get through this together, but when we come out the other side, we're going to be better for it.
Oh, agreed. And I love the idea. I was going to get into the video streaming here. Do you foresee that you want to keep that around? I foresee like more on-demand services being available, and almost people will invest in almost a premium on-demand and a live version too in time. Yeah. It'll probably take some time, but as we see it opening, how is this project work now, and how do you see it evolving? We launched a platform called Live Virtually almost immediately when this all started. And what we're doing is we're putting up regional and local and national artists that are doing live shows. And that's worked out pretty well, and it's getting a lot of views. I mean, we're seeing a lot of activity on the site. And it's a free platform now, and we're intending to keep it free for quite a while. But what we're beginning to see is artists coming out doing essentially pay-per-view. I mean, it's like MMA and WWE style. I'm going to be broadcasting from my living room, and it's going to cost you $20 to watch it. So we haven't actually seen that happen yet. It is happening out there. We haven't done it yet, but it's certainly a possibility of something we may see happen in the future. Artists that are playing the building, artists that are too big to play the building, that type of thing, where we still would have some opportunity to connect them with our database and our audience. In theory, this could really be an economic boom in the long run. I mean, if people embrace this, which I feel they will, to spend $20 and sit at home and watch a show or whatever it may be. Yeah, I think it's got a great future ahead of it.
I think it does too for artists as well. I mean, it's at some level, and we don't really know exactly what's going on, but with our Live Virtually platform, we've been partnering with local and regional artists and putting them up. And we don't know the numbers, but lots of people are out there, doing shows, putting up tip jars. And if an artist, and we're just kind of throwing numbers around, but if an artist is able to go out there, go online, put up a tip jar, and do $200, $300 in tips that night through their PayPal or whatever they have, for some of those artists as solo artists, they weren't doing that at a coffee shop that they were playing on a Friday night. So I'm not, and when they get to the point of we are able to go back out and we're able to be in a coffee shop again, what says that the artist can't still do that online and have it be part of their overall model of how they sustain themselves as artists. And I see that going all the way up the chain, from solo local artists through to a major national act that can not only tour, but in addition to touring, they can periodically throughout the year do these live virtual events and virtual events and pick up some additional revenue and keep their operation going.
I think it's wonderful, and there's so much you could do with it too. I mean, you could get backstage footage, you could hang out with people as they're playing, recording a virtual just jam session. Just so many avenues. I think people's minds start going, this is going to be good in the long run. Yeah. Let's see here. So in your time at the Akron Civic Theatre, have you ever seen it close? I'm sure you had weather, atmospheric conditions, weather or water main, things of that nature, but what's the longest you ever had to close before?
Nothing like this. I mean, even weather related stuff, it's an interesting thing, and you're a student of this. I mean, I know you are. It's the impact of social media on all of us. And so this situation didn't happen in a vacuum, because of I believe, and social media has been an incredible asset, and there's no question about that. It's changed our business. Our business model, the way that we do events, the way we communicate about events, it's changed a lot of things. And, there's things that you have to understand about how it works, and understand that we no longer control what the message is. The public will control what the message is going to be. What the public thinks about us is defined by what the public thinks, not by what we want them to think. And all of that is in that. But the reason I get all the way around that is, when you think about weather, pre-social media, 5 years ago, if it started snowing, we didn't get a million phone calls about, is that show canceling? Because everybody just knew that it had to be like 4 feet of snow and whatever before we got a phone call. This last winter, not so much this winter as much, because it didn't snow very much, but last winter, the minute we got the first forecast of a snowfall that was going to be 3 days from now, we start getting calls from people saying, is that show going to be canceled, right? So the reality here is that the fact that people are talking to us and having these conversations so directly has whipped up a conversation in the community that is leading to us having to deal with things that we didn't previously have to deal with. So I bring all that up to say that we have almost canceled shows because there was so much public outcry about the potential for a weather situation. And that, I thought, was the craziest thing I ever saw. But then this happened. And this is so in a different category. This is, the initial concern that was building up in the public became the public sector concern so quickly. And thankfully in Ohio, that it happened very quickly and proactively by our governor, that we've been impacted less severely than some other states that didn't move as quickly. So no, the answer is no. This is like nothing that I've ever experienced. I can't even equate it to anything. The closest thing I can equate it to is the situation with people getting hyped up about a potential weather event, and this was so far beyond that. It was quantum leaps beyond that.
Do you foresee in the future incorporating live broadcasting capabilities with multiple cameras and whatnot at your facility, so you can give that option to people?
Yeah, I mean, our plans always were, when we opened the new space in the White Law building, was to basically immediately Facebook Live broadcast everything that could be done that way. Certain things wouldn't have been able to because of rights or whatever. But so that was always our plan. And before any of this happened, if we do that and it is successful and people are using it and it looks like it, like anything else, I could definitely see a point where we would then add additional cameras and upgrade the production values from Facebook Live to a more professional broadcast. Yes, I could absolutely see that. We'll see what happens if people buy into it or not. If they accept it, they want to do it. But yeah, I could see that down the road.
Anything you want to add that I haven't brought up with you so far?
No, not really. I mean, I think the biggest thing about all of this is that we needed, in some ways, I think, the industry. I want to just talk about the industry, the entertainment industry, right? I think we needed a reset. Ticket prices were getting ridiculously high. Ticketing fees were getting ridiculously high. And why was that happening? Because the public was buying it, but it just kept getting driven up. And the higher it went, eventually we were going to get to a point where it collapsed because the public was no longer willing to pay for that, but the artists didn't quite yet figure out that the public wasn't going to pay for it, and they keep going. This whole thing is going to cause a reset. When we come back out of this, we're going to have to be in a place where we're much more responsive to what patrons and public want, what they're willing to do, what they are not willing to do, what they are looking for. It'll have to be driven by the public and the market much more than it's driven by what we decide that we want to see happen. And that's what this is going to have. That's what this is going to be about when we reopen. And I think we've needed to do that for a long time. So, of course, this is a horrible thing that's happened. I'm not trying to say, oh my God, it's a great deal, but I mean, people have died and people are hurting economically now. I'm not minimizing any of that. But when we come out of it, I do think that we will be stronger. And for the entertainment industry, I think there will be a reset that was necessary. And I hope that's what, hope that ultimately benefits everybody.
I could almost envision this two-tiered future where we do have the ability, if you want to go see it live, and you have the ability to broadcast it live too for a fee, and people will accept that now. So I think there's a lot of possibilities that in the future. Listen, look, if you watched that the thing the other day, right, the video thing the other day, the One World thing, right? I had Rolling Stones tickets. Okay, the show obviously got postponed. I bought the tickets because it was the Rolling Stones, and I'm like, I want to see the Rolling Stones. I've never seen them. This might be the last time I get to see them. And they weren't cheap. The tickets weren't cheap. But I bought the tickets, and okay, I'm going to do this. Now, the whole time I had those tickets, I was thinking to myself, I don't know if these guys are going to be any good or not. Can they carry a stadium anymore? But you know what? I'm still going to go because I just want to see the show. I want to see the Stones because I've never seen them. Well, after the One World thing, I'm like, damn, they still got it. Like, I want to see that, right? I mean, like, that is not going to discourage me from buying a Rolling Stones ticket. It's going to encourage me to buy a Rolling Stones ticket because I had the opportunity to see them live and they did a great set. Now, there's some other artists on that show that if I was ever going to buy a ticket for them, there's no way I'm buying a ticket for them now. But that's what I'm trying. It's like these things are not mutually exclusive. The fact that we're putting something up on TV or on streaming or computer or whatever doesn't mean that you're not going to go see it live. It's maybe the opposite. If you're showing something positive in a streaming manner, then it might encourage people to go buy a ticket. I couldn't agree more. I would actually pay $10, we'll say $20, whatever, to watch the event and then go live to see it too.
Right.
Because there's two different environments, there's two different feels, there's two different levels of comfortability. So I think it's a total future. Oh.
Yeah, and the market's going to tell us that. I mean, the question is, will artists be smart enough to understand that if their live ticket is $100, they can't charge $100 for the virtual ticket? That's the part that all that stuff has to get worked out. And I have no problem being, a capitalist in this situation. I mean, the market is going to tell us what is going to work. And the people that are able to listen to the market are going to be successful. The ones that can't won't.
I mean, it's thinking back to the singles days where you used to buy the single cassette for the single CD, and then you had the album you sold on top of that. The fans
right.
And they still bought the CD on top of it, and I'm spending like $50 back in the night on stuff.
Right.
I think this will definitely pull out. Well, I think I have all the information that I want here and that I need. And if it's okay with you, I mean, I'll cut through it. I don't think we said anything that was off nature or anything. I'll cut the beginning out, of course. But I may put these up in the full discussion just to have,
that's fine.
Because I think there's some good gems that get lost a lot. So I might put up the records. All
right.
That's
fine. Okay.
I appreciate Howard. Your first virtual interview for the show.
Very good.
Know how it goes from here. Thanks for your time. I greatly appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Yep, bye.